So students, this video is for class 8 subject science and chapter 10, that is your force and pressure. So let's start this video. As far as the introduction is concerned, we have had a basic idea about force, right? What is force and what is pressure? In our general day-to-day life, we have been using these two terms. But what is the basic technical difference between these two words that we'll be going through and we'll be trying to understand? Right, so let's start. Force, like as far as the definition of force is concerned, it is nothing but you can say a sort of push or a pull, which basically changes or has the potential to change the shape of an object, right? And there are certain things associated that force can do, or basically you can say the effects of forces as far as it is concerned. First is a change in the direction of a moving object, right? For example, when you are playing cricket and a ball is approaching towards you, right, then with the help of bat you are basically applying force and you change the direction of ball. Then is changing the speed of a moving object. So ultimately, like when you are striking the ball, basically sometimes you increase the speed of the ball or you decrease the speed of the ball, you can say, right? Or just imagine a case, you are riding a bicycle and all of a sudden dog starts chasing you, you'll be pedaling more, yeah, that is, you'll be applying more force, and you can see the entire your cycles and your yourself also, the speed will increase, right? Now third is the changing the shape of an object. For example, when your mother for making chapatis, she'll be making dough and all, so she's applying the force and she's changing the shape of dove continuously, you can say. Then moving a stationary object, just understand, like a ball is kept in the ground, football is there, okay, it is lying as it is, and you just try and kicking the ball, so that kick basically is nothing but a sort of force, and you can say you have changed the state of motion of that object from rest, you have made it to be in the state of motion. Now comes the topic, that is your magnitude of force, right? So basically, what is the magnitude of force? Before that, we have to understand, like in generally in science, we have divided all the physical quantities into two criteria, that they might be either your scalar quantities or they might be your vector quantities. So scalar quantities are something like which are having only magnitude and no involvement of direction, but as far as the magnitude is concerned, they are the ones which have magnitude along with that direction. So force, you can say is a vector quantity where along with the magnitude you have the direction also, right? For example, consider the case in this diagram that is 10.3, it has been given. Two kids are there, they are applying force on the table in from the opposite direction, right? Even though the magnitude of force will be there, but the net force on the net force, you can say, on the table might be zero if they are applying the same force. Whether in the same case, in the second case, that when they are applying the force from the same direction, you can see the table will be moving, but in the first case it was not moving. So that is, you can say, in the second case the force was getting added up, right? So here the direction of here the role of direction you can understand, right? So now comes the SI unit of force is nothing but you can say Newton. It is, you can say, 1 Newton is nothing but the magnitude of force which is required to move an object which is of mass 1 kg, right? And apart from that, one other unit is there, that is your 1 kg, that is equal to your 10 Newton basically, right? Now comes the classification of forces. Basically the forces are classified into two criteria. First one that we have is the contact force, like when the two bodies there, right? So basically before that, we have to understand that force is something which always exists in pair, right? There will be two bodies which will be involved, right? So when the two bodies are in contact, it means they are physically touching each other. That time you can say that the force will be of contact type. So under the contact force, we have several type of forces. Like first is your muscular force. So muscular force is nothing, you can say, it is a force which is generated by the muscles, like for example, when you are riding a bicycle or when you are walking, right? When you are applying, you are using basically the riding a bicycle, you are basically using the muscles of your leg and all, right? And even when the carts are being pulled by a cow or a buffalo, that time also they are using their muscles, right? Now comes the frictional force. Frictional force is nothing, it is a beauty of this force is that it always opposes the state of motion. Consider you are riding a bicycle and without applying brakes, if you are not pedaling, if you stop pedaling and without applying brakes, after some time you will find that your cycle will stop moving, right, all of a sudden. So here is basically the frictional force comes into the picture, and it is being generated between the tire of your cycle and the road, right? So again, in a contact force, right? Contact force is there. Now comes the non-contact forces. Non-contact forces are there. Here it is not mandatory for the two bodies to be physically touching each other, right? The first force is basically your gravitational force. You can say gravitational force or the gravity. You might have heard the term. It is nothing but the force by which, irrespective of the direction you are throwing any object, it will ultimately comes down, right? So you can say it is a force by which the earth pulls any object towards it, whether it might be the drops of rainfall or anything being dropped from a particular height, right? So here basically if you are dropping it any object from any sort of height, ultimately it will come down towards the surface of earth, basically, even though not in contact with each other. And the beauty of this gravitational force is that it is always attractive in nature, and even the planets in the solar system, they are revolving in a well defined orbits cause of these you can say the gravitational force of the sun, right? The next one is magnetic force. You can say the magnetic force which is exerted by the poles of the magnet, even though you are not bringing the magnets like close to each other. Like you heard of read about this, that the like poles repel and the unlike poles attract each other. So even though you bring them in the vicinity, or you can say in the close proximity of each other, you can feel that magnetic force, right? Now last comes your electrostatic force. It is a basically whatever the matter is being present around the in the entire universe, it is made up of charges, and the charge basically are of two types. Either it can be of either a positive type or a negative type. So opposite charges basically repel each other, attract each other, sorry, and the like charges, they repel each other. Okay, now moving on, there one device is being given in a book, and they have a sort of hint, that is a spring balance. Basically, when will be going to the higher classes, that time we'll understand the basic difference between the mass and weight. So weight is generally a force which is exerted, or you can say it is a gravitational mass, basically the pull that is exerted by any by earth on any object which is having mass on it, right? So spring balance is nothing but a sort of device which measures the weight, or you can say the gravitational mass of any object, right? Now comes the pressure, right? So pressure basically both force and pressure are interrelated to each other. Ultimately you can say they are dependent on each other, right? When along with force you are considering the effect on a particular area, we use the term pressure. So as far as the technical terms is concerned, it is, you can say, pressure is nothing but a force per unit area, and the SI unit for this is your Newton per meter square, or you can say we call it as Pascal also. So here the beauty is like here the pressure and force are directly interrelated, that is they are directly proportional to each other, and pressure and area are inversely proportional to each other. Means if you are increasing the force, ultimately there will be an increase in the pressure, and when you are increasing the area, there will be an increase in the pressure. So certain cases you have to understand, right? For example, if you are having a if you are having a blunt knife and you are having a sharp knife, and you try to cut a fruit with that, right? You might find it difficult to cut it with a blunt knife. The reason being, even though you'll be applying with the same force on the fruit, right, but you'll not be able to cut it smoothly as with the blunt knife, right? The reason being the area of contact between the edge of knife and the apple, right? In the sharp knife case, you can say the area might be very less, resulting in an increase in the pressure, right? And last comes your next topic comes basically your pressure exerted by the liquids. Basically the beauty about the pressure is liquids is like liquids in case of liquids, the pressure increases with the depth. It exists in all the directions, and you might have seen, like consider two cases, like there are two submarines. One is at more depth in the ocean, and the other is not at that much depth. So the one which will be at the more bottom will be experiencing more force. So basically we have a device that is called as manometer for measuring the pressure exerted by liquids. So here nothing, we have basically a U-shaped tube, right? And the one end is being open and the other end is basically having a funnel, and it is being moved in the liquid in which we have to measure the pressure basically. And then basically we experience the difference in the level of mercury, or you can say water also, and the difference is basically used for calculating the difference, right? And here again we have performed the activities where we have seen, like as we increase the depth, right, or we go more into the depth, the pressure increases. Next is your that is your basically you can say the pressure exerted by the gases. Before that we have to understand the atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure basically means like all the gases which are being present that is surrounding the earth, they constitute our atmosphere, and they all of them exerts pressure on the us, right? So that pressure which is exerted by the atmospheric content, you can say the gases present in the atmosphere, is called as the atmospheric pressure, right? And basically barometer is a device which is which basically used for measuring the atmospheric pressure. And Here basically we have a trough which consists of mercury, and we have a long tube which is of 1 meter length, or you can say 100 centimeter, and we just put it upside down, and we can see some area which is basically open at the top of it, and that is used for measuring the pressure. So that's it from this chapter. And